So thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us today. Obviously, thank you all for joining. Just before we kick off, I'm Rob. I'm the senior marketing executive here at Alberon. I'm joined here by James, who's a senior Microsoft consultant. For those of you who don't know, Alberon is part of the Target Integration Group. We are a UK-based company for 20 years experience building tailor-made digital solutions for businesses across the UK, whether that's custom software, optimizing 365 stack, custom SharePoint designs, and aptly for our webinar today, working with Copilot AI. So we've helped organizations streamline their operations for years now, and sort of drive efficiency with the right technology for their business. Should we dive right into today's discussion, really? Obviously, one of the big innovations in the Microsoft ecosystem now is Copilot. I know a lot of you have probably heard a lot of talk and chatter around Copilot, and the buzzword of the year, even last year, was AI and how can AI affect our businesses now. And I know a lot of people that I speak to at least go, Rob, how does this help me? And they don't understand the use cases for that. And I think that's part of the reason why we wanted to start this webinar series, this video series, to really answer a lot of those questions people may not know, or people who may be using AI but don't know how that integrates with their current business and the Microsoft stack. So I think, James, should we kick off with really introducing what is Microsoft Copilot?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, thanks, Rob. So Copilot is obviously Microsoft's AI offering in its productivity apps and across its ecosystem. So there's a couple of elements to it. So I think a lot of people are quite familiar now with things like ChatGPT. It's been around for a little while, and they're kind of used to that sort of AI product where you can sort of ask it questions, interrogate it. I mean, it's kind of superseded things like Google, not entirely, but you get the picture. They ask it questions, they sort of research stuff. But Copilot 365 is also built into a lot of Microsoft's productivity apps that you're all familiar with, the Office apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and it uses a couple of things. One is a term you might have heard called large language models, LLMs, and that basically the algorithms look at data sets, and it allows you to kind of summarize, analyze content, and also create content as well. But it also connects in with what's called Microsoft Graph, and that's what allows it to connect into things like your Outlook emails, your Microsoft Teams conversations, and the documents that are contained in things like OneDrive, SharePoint, and as I said, across the apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and Outlook, and very recently into SharePoint as well. So it allows you to sort of summarize your content, analyze it, analyze data, and also create content as well. And it's got some quite good features around planning and organization, which is something we've been using a lot internally, particularly our project managers. So that's kind of where we are with the Copilot ecosystem.
Okay, I know a lot of people as well have probably seen, if they use Bing, Copilot as an add-on to Bing where they can query against it. How is that different then to, say, the licensed version of Copilot, James?
Yeah, so for those of you, as Rob said, using Bing or in Windows 11 and things like that, you'll have started to see the Copilot icon pop up now in some of your menus, and that is basically GPT-4. So it allows you to talk and inquire and research just like you would have done in ChatGPT, or maybe those of you might be using some other products like Google Gemini and things like that. The difference with the licensed version, Copilot 365, is that then gives you the integration, as I said, with the some of the other applications like Word and Outlook and SharePoint, and then it connects through Microsoft Graph to allow you to sort of interrogate your content. So it's kind of split between how they you'll see this in a minute, how they differentiate it between web and work. So work is kind of focused into your Microsoft tenant, to the products and apps that you've got available, and then the web is what it says. It can go out to the internet and actually analyze data from that source as well. So that's kind of the main difference.
Cool. With that being said, as well, then for the license version, does that depend on? Obviously, that's a bolt onto your Microsoft license. Does that depend on what license tier then that you have, whether that's Business Basic, Business Premium, etc.?
So Copilot is a license in itself, and that will just once you've procured that, that will then activate into whatever apps you've got available. So if you've got business standard or premium, then it will be available in the web versions of the applications, but also the desktop versions as well. If you're on business basic and you've got web only apps, it will still be available in there, uh, but it obviously you don't have access to desktop apps, so you won't see it in that. But yeah, it's kind of it's an add-on to your standard Microsoft licensing.
Right, okay. Um, so James, then, do we want to dive into some of the functionality then of Copilot?
Yep, sure. So I'll share my screen.
Amazing.
Let me know if you can see that, Rob.
Yep, that's come through.
So this is the Microsoft 365 homepage, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And once you've got Copilot, you'll see the Copilot icon on the left-hand side, and this is the main Copilot screen here. Now, as we just mentioned, you can toggle between web and work. So if you do have the licensed version, you'll have both those options. And as we said, I'm in the web version now, so you can ask it anything. This will go out to the internet and pull information back or generate some content for you. It gives you some prompts here that it thinks might be useful. You can also view more prompts, so you can kind of get used to how you interact with this. The prompting is really important, and we're going to share some resources after this call. And one of them is how to construct a really good prompt, because a lot of people find that when they first do this, they're kind of like, well, what shall I ask it? And getting that conversation going is a bit sort of stuttering. But once you understand how to construct a good prompt and how to give it the right context, you will find that you'll get much better returns from things like Copilot. So that's really important. They kind of split the prompt into 4 sections. But as I said, we'll share this, and if you have a quick read of that, that's really useful, and it will help you get the most out of this. If we toggle to work, it changes slightly. So now this is connecting through Microsoft Graph, and now I can interrogate things like my documents in SharePoint or my Teams conversations or my Outlook calendar. And the prompts slightly change on this to sort of give you some options around how you can do that. So these are the kind of 2 different platforms in Copilot. If we come through to some of the features, so I've got some examples lined up. So in OneDrive, for example, I've created just a demo blank Word document there that I've called Copilot Demo. And as you can see from the document menu now, you've got the Copilot icon in there. So within OneDrive at the moment, if I wanted to, if this was a business document that we were using, if you hit the Copilot icon, you can get it to summarize that document. So if it's quite a lengthy document and you want a nice concise overview of what that document contains, you can get it to do that very quickly. You can ask it questions about the documents. And also, this is really useful. You can actually create an FAQ straight from that. So rather than having to go and manually construct a frequently asked questions based on, you could have a huge document here. If you actually click create an FAQ, and it will generate that for you. And this is something that we're starting to use internally as part of our knowledge bases and stuff. So some of these features are really good. A lot of people say, is this all about time saving? Time saving there are time savings, obviously, and that obviously is very useful. We're all very busy. But this is all about giving you tools to actually make smarter decisions, actually understand your data better, and actually start creating more useful content. So it's as much about productivity, really, as it is about time savings and efficiencies. So that's just a quick example in OneDrive. If we come up to Microsoft Word, this is the Word desktop app. and you can see there's already some Copilot options now that will appear at the top of a blank document. So I can get it to write an article based on an existing document that we have. It can draft documents. It can help you draft a sort of email before you actually go into Outlook. And you can actually get it to create content. So for example, I could say, as a HR professional, create a appraisal guide for line managers, focusing on specifically on employee performance, and then generate some action items to follow an appraisal interview. And within a few seconds, it will generate that kind of content for you. Now, there's always a caveat on AI, and it does tell you this on most of the products, that this has been generated by AI, so check the accuracy. But actually, from my use of it so far in PowerPoint, in Word, the accuracy has been pretty good. There's not too much that you need to go and change. And things like in PowerPoint, it can create presentations for you. You can ask it. I know many of us have probably been told, can you create a PowerPoint presentation on this? And you're kind of like, oh, and then getting started can be a little bit slow. And once you get into the flow, it's quite good. But what Copilot can do is actually, you can tell it the overview of the presentation that you've got to produce. You can give it a bit more context around specific areas, and it will generate all the slides for you very, very quickly with animation built in. Now, it might not be the 100% the finished article, but it gives you a really good start. And that's it. So this is kind of the uses for it around content creation. It's recently gone into SharePoint, so we've got a demo SharePoint site here. And you can actually now quickly create what they call Copilot agents. So if you're in one of your SharePoint sites and you hit the new button, you should see, once you've got the Copilot installed, you've got an agent option there. And if you select that, this will actually create a Copilot agent connected to that SharePoint site. And then basically you've got a dedicated agent for that site where you can interrogate it about the documents contained within that SharePoint site, the uses of it, all the information in there. So it's, rather than going out across your whole Microsoft tenant or on the web version going out to the internet, you're actually getting it to focus on a specific data set there, which is the SharePoint site that you're in. You can also do it down to document library level as well. So if we come into a document library here, at the top on the menu, you'll see create an agent. Same thing, just click that and it creates it for you. And this is now an AI interface just with that document library. So you can actually give it specific data sets to look at, and then you can just use it as you would normally use your AI tools. But you're just actually localizing it onto what you need to see. So it kind of filters out everything else. This is relatively new, but it's pretty good. And particularly those of you that have got big document libraries, lots of documents in, having that interface to be able to go in, analyze the documents within it, summarize documents, and create action items and stuff is really, really useful.
James, I suppose that brings up the point of security then around accessing these documents and to what if we're having Copilot interrogate them.
Yeah, that's a really important point. So there are concerns. We hear people all the time about how secure is AI. You know, is it going to open backdoors into things? So Copilot in particular, security was a big thought process into this from day one. So security is completely built into the Copilot infrastructure. And actually, perversely, it can actually help you to identify security problems, funnily enough. So Copilot will not give you access to any documents or any areas that you don't already have permission for. Now, I heard a case recently where someone who'd started using Copilot, when they started sort of interrogating their documents and stuff, they actually found that they'd got access to documents that they shouldn't have access to. And the initial knee-jerk reaction was, this is Copilot that's done that, quick, turn it off. But actually, that permission problem existed before Copilot. That user had access to documents they shouldn't have. nothing to do with Copilot at all. It was the permissions and access were actually set up incorrectly. And all Copilot did was bring that to the fore and actually shine a light on that problem. So if we're talking about the deployment of Copilot for businesses, it's actually a very good opportunity to do a complete assessment of your permissions and access. That's something that we work with people on implementations. Permissions and access is always very important. But when you're thinking about deploying Copilot out, actually, that's a good time to actually do a review of who's got access to what, who's got administrator permissions, and take that opportunity to do that. It should be something that's reviewed continuously anyway, but I would suggest that an AI rollout, particularly something like Copilot, that's a great opportunity to look at that, and that should be top of your agenda when you're thinking about deploying something like this.
I suppose that segues us fairly nicely into how would you then implement this into a organization then, James, depending on the size and scale?
So it really depends on the size of the organization, really. I mean, if you're a very small organization with maybe half a dozen employees, then you might be confident in giving people all those 5 or 6 people access at the same time. For larger organizations, I think the most effective approach would be a sort of phased rollout. One, because you can manage that better, but also you should be thinking about, are the staff going to get anything out of this product? We hear a lot about return on investment. So you've having a small test user group, or partnering with people like us that can give you more information on this. You can actually look at what functionality Copilot gives you, and then start thinking about who would actually benefit from that. Now, for an example, for us, we're doing a phased rollout. So we've got a small group of us that are utilizing this internally. But the people that we aimed it at first were our project managers, because there's some really good planning and organization capabilities in Copilot, and we thought the project managers would be the ideal people to get the most out of that, which is, as it's turned out, is absolutely correct. But then we look at other user cases, other functionality, and decide across the business, right, who might benefit from this, from content generation, or from being able to sort of analyze documents and stuff. I can quickly show you actually one of the functionalities we've got around Microsoft Teams. And this is kind of one of the things we were thinking about when we were looking at our project managers. So when you're in a Teams call, you can open a Copilot pane and actually ask it questions about the meeting while you're in it. But if you actually record the meeting, at the end, when the meeting's finished, you'll get a notification in your Teams activity, which will say meeting recap is ready. And when you click on that, it will open up a screen like this. Now, this is we had to pick something innocuous. So this was a Christmas call that we had. But this is what it gives you. So you will get the full recording of the meeting in the top left. If any files or documents were shared during the meeting, they will be pinned here. You get a full AI transcript of the meeting, and it also includes action items to take away from that meeting. If there's any times you were mentioned personally, it will show you when that happened and what the context was, in what part of that call you were actually mentioned. It also breaks the recording down into speakers, so it shows you who spoke and when. From this screen, you can see it's got topics. So if you wanted to go to a particular topic or keyword during that meeting, if that's what you're interested in, you can go straight to it. And it won't only show you where it is in the recording, it will also show you where it is in the transcript. And also for longer calls, it will break that down into chapters, so you don't have to go back and watch the rest of the meeting if you just want to see a specific part. So something like this is brilliant. If you're in Teams calls a lot and you're sort of tasked with doing follow-on actions, or you need to understand what was said, if you're producing reports off this functionality is absolutely brilliant. And this is something our project managers are using a lot. There's a similar thing in Outlook. Another good way of sort of planning organization. So if I take an email here, this was just a general email that I had internally. You can actually get Copilot to summarize an email thread. So I know many of us have got email conversations that seem to go on forever. Getting Copilot to summarize that is obviously really, really useful. But also, if you've got an email conversation that you need to schedule a meeting from, you've actually got a schedule with Copilot option, which will create the meeting invite for you. It will look through your scheduling assistant to make sure when everyone's available, and it'll actually create an agenda for you, add any documents in that are relevant, and invite the people from that email trail into it. So they're just a couple of examples of how this can be used for planning an organization, as well as sort of normal GPT type interactions and content creation.
I think that really shows then the power of Copilot. I think we've all had days where, I mean, at least I have, where you've been in meetings from 9 till 5:30, but no actual work's been actioned out the back of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So being able to schedule yourself around it with Copilot, I think, provides you that time, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something we're using an awful lot internally. Is the integration with Microsoft Teams and Outlook, because as you say, if you're in back-to-back meetings and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, what did we say? You might have recordings under the old system where you had to go back and watch it all and sort of fast forward. But having a tool that breaks that meeting down, puts the information you need front and center, it's a real game changer for us. And I can imagine this would be useful for lots and lots of people.
Amazing. I suppose that really leads. I'm conscious of time. That leads us really into that question of then what is the return on investment then with Copilot, and I think that really touches on it, right, James, with the whole time save
Sure.
aspect.
Yeah. I mean, time savings is obviously everyone's busy. Anywhere that you can save time, and we work with a lot of people on automation. Now, something we haven't touched on properly, we did mention Copilot agents in SharePoint. You do have access to Copilot Studio, where you can actually create your own agents. And just in a nutshell, it's very, very simple to do. It walks you through it, but you can basically create your own kind of Copilot that connects to various different data sources. We've got one at the moment that we're developing in-house that we've connected to our website, and we'll be deploying that on our website. And it allows visitors to the website to use it as almost like a turbo chatbot. But when you build the logic within these agents in Copilot Studio, you've actually got the ability to connect to things like Power Automate and Power Apps, which extends the capability even further. So um, from a conversation with Copilot, you can actually get it to trigger automated workflows from that conversation to do even more tasks. So the kind of possibilities are exponential. I mean, and it's adding more functionality all the time. So from a return on investment point of view, as said, this kind of fits into what organization you are, how many people. It's good to understand. Another resource we'll share is what applications Copilot's available in and what it does within each one of those apps. And then it's kind of assessing that and saying, right, it will allow you to do this, X, Y, and Z. Who do we feel internally is going to benefit from that? Who's going to really get the most out of this, and kind of deploy it out that way? And that way you ensure that it's not just a nice thing that you've just bought and then no one uses. You can actually be a bit more intelligent about who you make this available to.
Oh, amazing then. I think as well, off the back of this webinar as well, we'll send out James's details. If you've got any questions that you want to take offline and ask him specifically. I know a lot of this to do with Copilot could be industry specific or your organization specific. So I think sitting down and actually having that conversation really starts opening those doors of what the tool can be used for. Okay, was there anything else from your side, James, before I move on?
Well, only to add that we'll be looking at further webinars on this, where we will actually deep dive into specifics. So I mean, we've touched on a few things there. I mean, this is such a huge topic; it's difficult to cover it in 30 minutes. But we will certainly be looking at additional webinars where we will take a deep dive into each specific application and show you what's possible and what you can do. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, echoed from my side as well, James. What I'll do is after the webinar today, I'll send out the schedule for the next one, where we'll take a deeper look at maybe some of the other functionalities to do with either scheduling or maybe how that implements with Excel. So we'll share that out in comms after we take this offline. Obviously, we've got a couple of minutes left. If there are any questions from the attendees, if you've got any questions at all you want to bring up right now, pick them in the chat. We'll hang around for another couple of minutes. But obviously, after the webinar today, I'll share James and myself as details anyway. So if you want to send us a direct message or jump on a call with us, then you can feel free to do that. But no, thanks for joining the webinar today, gang. We'll obviously say we'll hang around for another couple of minutes in case there's any more questions. But if not, thank you for joining, and we'll speak to you next time.